everyone. How you doing? Good. Glad to hear it. I find no matter what I do, I always start a video like that. How's it going? How you doing? Like as if I can get a response, right? Well, right now, I'm sure that a lot of you out there are suffering the wrath of the storm. At least know someone who is down in Houston. That was some gnarly stuff, but it's sort of what inspired me to make this video about charlatans, ripoffs, thievery. It's very difficult to pin down exactly what I want to discuss here, but basically it is people taking advantage of others. And this happens in the market, this happens in charities, or this happens in first aid or rescue, like what's happening right now. Just like with Hurricane Katrina, there are a lot of people who set up fake fund accounts, and people are, unscrupulous in asking people for donations for a cause that they will never even help out with. Anytime that there's a natural disaster, there are people that are there to take advantage of it by scamming others out of their money. And that to me is one of the lowest of lows. In other words, there's a market and a time and a place for people to make their money. They say a fool and his money will soon part, and also caveat emptor, or buyer beware. And that's the idea that you as an individual have an obligation to be smart enough to not get taken for something. And it was mainly Hall, I remember there was a quote he always said, and it wasn't his, but it just stuck with me. It says, you cannot cheat an honest man. And explaining that further to say that if a person doesn't expect anything, if a person doesn't expect a super deal or something that they don't really deserve or haven't earned, then they won't have people coming up saying, hey, if you invest $5 with me, I'll make you 50. Because that's just gambling. This is why gambling is a problem. It's because somebody's always going to profit. Sometimes you may do good, and that nostalgia for the, pardon me, that feeling you get, that dopamine rush when you win something or gain something, just like when you buy something at the store, it's hard to stop that, and it's human nature to seek these rewards. And it's only now that we, even in modern day, understanding different, how our brains work a little bit better, we're still kind of in the dark, but we do understand that these reward pathways are created by our reactions to things, the way that if we take a drug and we get a great feeling, we build a memory and an association with that. It has to do with dopamine and serotonin and a vast interaction of different neurochemicals, but really a lot of it, more than just the neurochemistry, and is the way that we handle it personally. How we approach life and how we approach, well, I'm getting kind of off track, but it all ties into the same idea. When we stop trying to get ahead and stop trying to get one over on other people, we stop being taken advantage of. And so, with the donation thing, let me just get that out of the way. What I was saying is that there are some companies that aren't, or some groups that aren't actual companies and aren't actually helping out at all. And then I dug a little deeper and found out that even the Red Cross, there's a bunch of unaccounted for money from Haiti and the Relief Fund. And for those who are unaware, also Goodwill is a for-profit organization, and so is the Red Cross. And these are organizations that we assume are helping people, so therefore they must be non-profit or not for-profit. But they're paying their administrators hefty amounts of money. And it comes down to, what does a person believe that a non-profit should pay to their administrators? I mean, what is a fair wage? If you own a corporation and you've built your business from the ground up, nobody should tell you whether you should make $100,000 or $100 million a year. I think that making $100 million is a preposterous amount of money, but I'm not the one to stop someone from that or tell them they shouldn't. But I do know that when somebody is making a lot more than everyone else, then somebody else is losing out on it. That's just the way it goes. When you look at the market, you look at what something is worth, and people will say, well, basically the going saying is, things are worth whatever people will pay for them. And to an extent that is true. Oil prices can soar, but people will stop driving and going on vacation. They remain at the level they do because of competition in the marketplace. As soon as competition in the marketplace is gone, which pretty much it is already with, most of our resources, including oil, then those markets are decided by the people who have the product. I think that we as humans should have the, a really lengthy discussion about who really owns resources that keep us all alive. And I think that we are. And things are changing. The people have what they, the public works and public resources that we're working to keep within the realms of the people. But I'm getting off track. I wanted to just kind of cover all the bases. My big thing here is about what we consume as consumers, how much we waste. I'll start off with eyeglasses. I'm sure a lot of you wear glasses. I don't, but my son does. And I was on state insurance up until last year. And the state would cover one pair of glasses every so often. They changed their rules to where it was like once a year. And you can get one free pair per year, and after that you have to pay for them. Well, I'm paying cash now. And I went in there and I said, well, I need a pair of glasses. And I thought, well, I'd just get the same ones we got last time. And they said, oh, well, you can't get those. Oh, those are only through the state. And of course, this was my little glimpse into, we know that state insurance and, people who have Medicaid and Medicare are getting lesser quality products and sometimes lesser treatment because of the fact that the state won't pay for nicer things. But I was thinking about this. The glasses are glasses. They should be cheap. When I went to pay cash and buy these things, I was forced to pay over $250 for his prescriptions. This was like $150 for the frames and about $100 for the lenses. Now, after further research, now I understand what's going on. There's one company called Luxottica, I believe. They own Sunglass Hut, all the optometrists, like 80 or 90% of all the places that sell prescription glasses, as well as a majority of the brands. And it was interesting because I had a discussion just yesterday with somebody who claimed, well, I was talking about sunglasses or sunglasses. If you pay $20 or $200, it's up to you if you want to have a label on there. But generally, the quality difference isn't worth the markup in price. And they said, well, I have a pair of Ray-Bans and I love them. I said, well, there is something to be said about having a good pair of glasses, but the cost to manufacture them is pennies different than the other ones, and they're all made in the same place. Versace, Gucci, all of them are made in warehouses in China, and people are willing to pay like $300-400 for a pair of shades that's made basically right next to a pair of generics. And this goes for eyeglasses too. What I found out is Luxottica, Oakley wanted to sell in their stores, and they wouldn't allow them to. Basically, Oakley didn't play by their rules, so they ran them into the ground, and Oakley was forced to sell to Luxottica, so now they own Oakley too. All of these companies are owned by one company, and what I'm getting at here is this is horrible, horrible thing that, what, unscrupulous, is that the word, or is it scrupulous? It's so selfish and so greedy to take advantage of people with something that they need. Now, sunglasses, that's one thing. Anybody can get cheap sunglasses, but you cannot go out and buy cheap prescription glasses unless you shop around and understand what's going on. And then you can find them from other manufacturers. But these are dominating companies that try to run everyone out of business. And this is happening with everything. Cell phones, Verizon, when I first got on cell phones, there was competition. Verizon has just kicked everybody's out and basically forced people to use them. No, you don't have to use Verizon. A lot of people don't. But they make it as miserable as possible, and they have the worst possible customer service. And when it comes to Comcast, they are absolutely horrendous. And this is pretty much the only option here. If you want cable, you get Comcast. Sure, you can get Dish or something else. I don't have cable. I just have the internet. But if you want to have fast internet, this is why the net neutrality issue is becoming a problem, because for those who don't know, net neutrality laws that they're trying to defeat basically say that they want to allow a company like Comcast to down throttle a service that they don't like. Let's say Netflix isn't paying Comcast enough, so they can cut their throttle down how much they're pushing. So you'd have continual buffering and reloading and problems. This is already happening, but it's been happening for a long time. It's nothing new. What I'm getting at is companies, we all know that companies are dominating the market and trying to take advantage of anyone. Amazon just bought Whole Foods for like $13 billion or something like that. It was absolutely insane. These people have too much money. 10 years ago, Amazon wasn't even really a thought, you know, but now everybody orders everything from Amazon. They've become amazingly huge overnight because of the convenience, because we choose to click the Prime button and say, well, we can get it delivered quickly. And I'm just as fucking guilty as everyone else. And I try really hard not to buy junk. But let me get into another part of this that I wanted to talk about, which was, junk, stuff that we buy from China or elsewhere. It doesn't matter where it's made. This is one of these weird conundrums they have for, let's say, Burning Man. Okay, Burning Man in the last few years has had kind of an issue with glow sticks. Over the last decade, glow sticks have become hated on, let's just say. Because 10 years ago, glow sticks were huge, and even still at Fish concerts and other shows, you know, people throw tons of glow sticks. Now people are becoming earth conscious, or realizing that you can't recycle these. They all end up in the garbage. They're a huge mess. They're toxic. Use something that's more earth friendly. So what's the other option? People move to LEDs, and that's what Burning Man is, would say, recommending for people. Get LEDs, not glow sticks. So I started thinking, of course, you know, the devil's advocate, I always want to like find the fault in the thought, and I realized every one of these LEDs has one thing in common, most of them, and that is button batteries or non-rechargeable batteries. And there are exceptions to the rule, like the light wands and the poi, the ones that you can actually use regular batteries. Personally, I have a huge set of AA's and AAA's that are rechargeable, and I try to use them for everything. But there are times when they won't work, or you need a different type of battery. So let me tell you, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is a fidget spinner that I bought. It just came in the mail today. I bought 5 of them. It was a 5-pack for $7.99. So they're less than $2 each. And the reason I got them, even though they're total pieces of junk, is because these ones have LEDs on them. And the LEDs have settings. And I thought, well, $1.50 for LEDs? That's a pretty good deal. I can take these anywhere I want and just play around with them, or just give them to people, whatever. And I have also some pocket watches I bought from China, like 8 of them I was going to give away at this, you know, event I was going to, and other things like that. And I know that what's happening is a lot of American sellers are just taking things like this from China that cost maybe a quarter each, tops, in bulk, and selling them to people. They're completely horribly made. Each one of them has 2 button cells in them, and these button cells end up getting tossed in the garbage. It's not an issue here yet, but in Japan they have major problems with mercury poisoning, and there have been some problems with mercury release into a river in the 60s, which made a lot of people sick, killed a lot of people. So it's kind of been on their minds, you know, something that's, they've had problems with it, but now it's just creeping in. It's not like a major spill. Little button cell batteries in everything they use in Japan go into the landfills, and they all live right next to the landfills because it's a small area, you know, and they're concerned that over the time, every one of these button cells has mercury in it. So my point being here that we move from glow sticks to button cells and find out we're throwing mercury into our dumps instead of some hydrogen peroxide that mixes with other stuff to make glow sticks, which is otherwise glass and plastic, and we have to weigh the options. We're consumers, which means that we have to be smart, and that's very difficult to do. You can't win. I want to give you one more example for kind of where I'm coming from here, and it's important to me. It's like, for example, Tesla, to start. Tesla Motors, they're talking about wanting to make these batteries for the home. It's like these home storage batteries. And he's claiming it can be done, and that we need to do this. And other people are saying, well, wait, we don't have quite the technology yet, and it's still kind of, labor intensive. It pollutes a lot to make these batteries. Batteries don't just pop up out of nowhere. Well, one of the things that got me curious about this was comparing solar to wind to gasoline or oil, fossil fuels. And to be honest, I think geothermal is probably the most amazing form of energy, but unless you live in Iceland, you can't really utilize that. So we do have some areas that can, but in areas that can't, they're burning oil. Whatever's most convenient in that area is what people are using for power. And out here, we have hydro because we have a river. In places that don't, they might use nuclear, or like in Florida, from what I understand, all of their power plants are oil. I don't know if that's true, or I looked into it a few years ago, but I don't know if it's still true, but wherever the oil is, it's much easier to burn oil or coal than it is to, import or move around other materials. We're kind of stuck where we are as consumers when it comes to power. So, getting off track a little bit, I compared wind power to oil, and I thought, well, it seems to make sense. Living where I do in the Willamette Valley, we have trucks coming down the freeway regularly that are full of windmill parts. And out in the gorge, because I live on the Columbia Gorge in Washington, between Washington and Oregon, and it's separated by the Columbia Gorge, and it's a huge river. It's the biggest river west of the Mississippi, and it's beautiful. It goes all the way down to the eastern Washington and Oregon, and that whole area, once you get east a little ways, it's just loaded with windmills. I mean, there are just wind farms everywhere. And so I thought, what is the real cost of wind power? I found out that, of course, I knew that it costs gas to transport these out there. I knew that it costs gas to transport the materials to the place to make the windmills. But most people would say, well, it's okay because once they're built, you just have to keep up on them and they're good to go. But keeping up on them is a lot of work. They have to check them constantly. The biggest issue that I found, and I'm not dissing wind power, I support it. I'm just giving, the other side of this. The magnets that are used in windmills are rare earth elements which are mined from China. The byproducts of this mining is radioactive waste that goes into these sludge ponds. So there are giant radioactive lakes in China as a byproduct of our wind power. Once again, consumers, we're totally screwed no matter what we do, no matter how we look at it. I'm not being defeatist, I'm just saying we have to be smart enough to not just say green is better than black oil, or that, glow sticks aren't as good as LEDs. All these may sound trivial, but I'm trying to give examples of where I'm coming from. So I can say we as consumers we don't have to deprive ourselves of enjoyable things. We don't have to be ascetics. We don't have to go into the woods and, not have anything. For some people that works for them and that's what they want to do. I'm honored to be able to utilize all the materials and awesome things that my ancestors have worked so fucking hard to create, regardless of whether they are good or bad. Pardon the language, but I seriously believe that all of these conveniences, I have my acoustic guitar over here, hats, backpacks, all this stuff that's been, that we've created, not just over decades, not just over centuries, but millennia. It's easy for us to take everything that we have for granted and complain about ourselves as consumers, and to shame ourselves, to insult ourselves for being consumers, to say, look at us, shame on us, we shouldn't use this stuff, and start depriving ourselves. You could let me use the metaphor of eating meat, because I think it's a perfect metaphor. Some people feel so guilty about how we treat animals on this planet that they use that as their sole reason for becoming vegan. I totally respect that. I'm not dissing vegans or vegetarians. But for me personally, I've gone through stages where I feel that way, and then back and forth, and then realized it's not about, it's about how if each human acted as if you were acting, then how would the planet fare? That's kind of the mentality I try to hold, and it's very difficult because that's very subjective and it sounds almost arrogant. Like, well, if everyone did what I'm doing right now, would the world be okay? And so that led me to believe that if I'm taking, 3 ounces of meat once or twice a week with my meal, but it's not going to destroy the world, but it's a matter of shopping and making sure that I'm buying the right products. But even then you have to sometimes just give in and say, I'm on the road, I'm on a road trip, I just got home from a festival, I really need a hamburger from Burgerville or something. I won't go to McDonald's, I don't eat Burger King or any of the major chains, but once in a while I'll go get one. And there's a place over here actually called Killer Burger, and it's all local grass-fed beef, just amazing burgers. They have one called the peanut butter pickle bacon, and I went in there with my son the other day after we got his glasses, the $250 glasses, and they were playing Megadeth. I think it was like off of Rust in Peace, their album, and right after that came on Slayer, and then another metal band, and I was like, this place is just awesome. They write the recipes up in chalk and the different beers that they've got on tap, and it's just a really the most amazing burger joint. But I feel good going there because I know that the owners and the people, the workers, all, even though they're selling cow, and I'm not a huge fan of eating cow because I absolutely adore them, that sometimes I'm willing to compromise that, and that's my choice as a consumer. And that is exactly how I feel about going out and buying a 5-pack of fidget spinners, or using a little bit of gasoline to go to an event. No matter, anytime somebody is say sitting on YouTube or Facebook or the internet somewhere complaining about how people use too many resources, I always say, don't forget you're on your computer right now. It's that's draining resources too. It's a small amount, but we're giving ourselves joy to go do this and enjoy ourselves online, realizing that it does take resources, and everything that we do is consuming. We're consumers. We as humans are consumers, and you cannot get away from it. You cannot escape it unless you move away into the woods, and then all you're doing is consuming nature around you. You're consuming the animals, you're consuming the plants. We are consumers. What do you really need? Are you 500 pounds and still eating? Then maybe you should stop eating. That's not to be offensive to someone who's 500 pounds, but to say that yes, there are limits to when we know that we've overconsumed. Should you not consume drugs or substances? That's a huge issue, and it's very subjective, very personal for people. But the way I see and understand neurochemistry in the brain is that with all the rewards we give ourselves through television, through purchases, and as well as all the grief and problems we suffer from work, and for the chaos of having to be part of this system, forced into it, I think we deserve to consume if we choose to. But if you're consuming so much that you can't remember what happened the night before, or you're waking up and hungover the next day, that's maybe too much. So same goes with all the products we consume. I try to buy things at Goodwill. I'm not trying to say that everyone should. If you want to buy something new, feel free to do it. But think about what we need before we buy it. Think about every purchase. Think about how it affects the world and how it affects individuals that are working in these places. It's very hard to know where to give charity and which companies to go with. As a Kratom vendor, when I sell Kratom, people try it. They know they like it because it's good and it gives them an effect. But when it comes to my other herbs, for example, like mucuna or more mild things like ginger or whatnot, people, let's say a person doesn't really know if it's any better than other herbs on the market just like it, unless they've compared them. This is the same way it goes with everything. except a person is willing to spend $500 on Versace glasses or $200 on a bandana just because it's, you know, made by some fancy company. It just blows my mind that people, I think that's the biggest problem that we have right now, is the waste of money in the wrong places. Maybe a company should start itself up as a true non-profit, completely disclose all their expenses, you know, and completely basically start a clothing line that's made of the very highest quality materials and that has a label on it that people can wear, shirts, pants, everything, that's a style just like anything else, Gucci or Versace, and that product is known not for just being some rich fucker's name, but it's known when you're wearing it as a non-profit organization that really does make change in the world. You know, maybe some of us should start something like that, you know. It sounds maybe like a pipe dream, but a non-profit, high-end clothing company, and be willing to compare your products to any of the other fancy products on the market to show, you know, that molecularly your silk is better, that you are using the very best threads, and that guess what, your stuff is made locally, not in China. Because when you're buying Gucci or Versace or Oakley, a lot of that shit is just made in China. And even things that are made in the US are just shipped back over here and labeled as, you know, as parts and then assembled in America. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. That's another thing I'd like to get out before I go here, is that it doesn't matter if something's made in America or if something's made anywhere else, because people are making it one way or another. It matters how the people are treated. It matters the type of environment that they work in. But we have to stop thinking that supporting America first is going to be a better thing. The whole world needs to get better. We all need to function as a whole. And to realize that consumerism isn't the enemy, it's just foolish consumerism. Buying things that we don't need because we're told we need them. And, you know, I don't really know how to overcome that. I see that my video has gotten quite long. So, consumer video over. I will talk to you all later. Peace. And talk to you soon.